Dr. Karen Murphy is Executive Vice President and Chief Innovation Officer and Founding Director of the Steele Institute for Health Innovation at Geisinger. Dr. Murphy has worked to improve and transform healthcare delivery throughout her career in both the public and private sectors. Before joining Geisinger, she served as Pennsylvania's Secretary of Health, addressing the most significant health issues facing the state, including the opioid epidemic. Prior to her role as secretary, Dr. Murphy served as director of the State Innovation Models Initiative at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, leading to a $990 million CMS investment designed to accelerate healthcare innovation across the United States. She previously served as president and chief executive officer of the Moses Taylor Healthcare System in Scranton. I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Murphy.
Thank you, Lucy. It's a pleasure to be here today. And really, today we all know that everybody knows about Scranton. So we used to have to explain where Scranton was. No longer is that the case. So it's a pleasure to be here during this really challenging times. But I love the title of the meeting today as Silver Lining. And I'll just start out by saying the silver lining of the pandemic. And I'll just start out by saying that it would really be a shame if we don't come out with silver linings after we've suffered so. As a country, as communities, as healthcare industry. So it's really important that we gather the silver linings. It will fuel us as we move forward. And it will also ultimately end in a better healthcare delivery system after the pandemic. And we will live in a day that the pandemic will end. So I could start my slides, please. So today I'm going to talk about transformation in response to COVID-19. Just before I get into my slides, at Geisinger, probably the second or third day, Jae-Won Ryu, the president and CEO of Geisinger Health System, is a very insightful healthcare leader. And he asked me to lead work on transforming the Geisinger enterprise post-pandemic, post-crisis. And he said the same thing that I said, is that similar to what I said, is that we have to come out better and stronger. So I've been thinking about this since, the 13th of March of how do we come out better and stronger. And I'd like to share with you some of our responses to the pandemic, and then also how we're looking at our transformation post-COVID-19. Next slide, please. So today I just want to start out by sharing a little bit about Geisinger, the impact of the pandemic, what our action was, and then end with some takeaway messages that hopefully we can discuss following the presentations. Next slide, please. So about Geisinger, next slide, please. We're located across Pennsylvania. We're an $8 billion we're an $8 billion organization in revenues. We have 33,000 employees, 11 hospital clinics. We provide quality, affordable health insurance through our Geisinger Health Plan that is Medicaid, Medicare Advantage, and also commercial insurance with over 500,000 members. We teach, research, and innovate. So I lead the Steele Institute for Health Innovation. We also have a large research shop, and we have a wonderful medical college located in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk about the impact of the pandemic. So as you can see, this is hot off the press. We entered in our part of Pennsylvania. We entered the pandemic. We started our market infection rates back in March. We peaked, late April, early May, and then we had a bit of a lull in the summer. And unfortunately, we're well onto our way right now of the second wave. Next slide, please. So there's such a difference. I think we thought the lessons, and this really resonates with me, is how much we didn't know at the beginning of the pandemic, and really how different the first wave and the second wave is, and the characteristics and how we're responding, that I'd like to share with you today. So we, like everyone else, stopped the healthcare delivery system on a dime. We canceled surgeries, we closed clinics, canceled diagnostics. It really just brought the healthcare delivery system to a halt. We transitioned 7,000 employees to work from home. We redeployed those employees, and this is an important point when I start talking about the second wave, is at that time, we had all these work streams that we had to do for COVID, such as reporting testing, such as reporting testing results, symptom monitoring, remote monitoring, and all these activities that we had to do. But we had 1,500 employees to help us, right? So because we were just concentrating on emergencies, inpatients, but our overwhelming focus was on how do we protect our patients, our employees, and our communities for COVID. And we had an extra 1,500 pair of hands to help us to do that because their work had been discontinued. We expanded virtual visits similarly to everyone else. We went from 40 to 4,500 a day. We launched a massive testing across the enterprise, and we leveraged digital technology, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. And immediately, like I said, with J1, we began post-COVID planning. And I reflect back, and I'm so sorry that I didn't really do a diary of the beginning, the first wave, because we really thought at that time it was a 3-month event. So at the very beginning, we thought we just have to flatten the curve, and then we can come out with all this transformation, innovation, and we will be that much stronger, really unknowing what the grip of this disease was.
I'm going to move now to introduce Julia Strandberg. We're going to listen to Julia, and then we'll go into breakout rooms, and then we'll have a chance to ask both Karen and Julia questions about their presentations. It does give me great pleasure to introduce Julia Strandberg, the Chief Commercial Officer of Pear Therapeutics. I first met Julia, I think it was in 2016. At that time, she was the Vice President and General Manager for Medtronic's Health Informatics and Monitoring Division. Julia, I don't know if you remember this, but Doug Bartlett said, "I'm the hardware guy and Julia is the future of the company." Do you remember that? She is now the Chief Commercial Officer of Pear Therapeutics. I want to congratulate her. Just a week ago, Pear won the Prix Galien USA Award for Best Digital Health Product. And I think this is a product that we may all personally be interested in this week. I wanted to highlight it. It's called Somrest. It's the first FDA-approved prescription digital therapy for patients with insomnia. So if any of you are having that issue this week, this is something we want to hear more about from Julia. Julia has been pushing the boundaries of what is possible in digital healthcare for decades. I am excited to have her here to talk a little bit about digital therapeutics and the explosion in innovation and uptake that COVID has inspired. Julia, thank you for joining us today. Oh, but you have to unmute. Can't hear you.
Thank you, Cassie and Chris, for the gracious invite. And I'm really humbled to be sharing a screen with Dr. Murphy. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it. Let's talk about Pear. Next slide. I think you can go one more. We just want to showcase our disclosure statement to all of you. And then we can move forward. Next slide. So Pear was founded in 2014 on the premise that digital medicine can treat serious diseases. And we asked ourselves really 3 questions. Can software and biology meet? Can we define a digital drug industry? And can we actually scale a market predicated on both tech and a commercial business? And as an output of that, next slide, we developed, Pear created the market of prescription digital therapeutics. And like small molecules, as we turned the 20th century, early in the 20th century, PDTs are a new class of therapy that is being utilized as an integration to standard of care today. In fact, Pear has created the first three FDA cleared, authorized prescription digital therapeutics, one for substance use disorder, one for opioid use disorder, and then as Cassie mentioned, one for chronic insomnia. And so prescription digital therapeutics or digital medicine is truly software to treat human disease. But let's talk about what it is. It has been tested in randomized clinical trials for safety and effectiveness, very similar to either a drug trial or a medical device. Our product is authorized or labeled by the FDA as a Class 2 medical device, so software as a medical device. And our reimbursement and pricing pathway is very similar to that of the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. Our reimbursement pathway follows the pharmacy benefit, and we have healthcare economic value that allows us to ascribe a pricing model. Certainly, there are elements of prescription digital therapeutics that help create differentiation, and you can imagine that the FDA clearance and the rigor that we take to drive clinical outcomes and healthcare benefits is paramount and part and parcel to prescription digital therapeutics and our differentiation. Next slide. So let's talk about our solutions. This is both for patients as well as clinicians, and I think of it as a three-legged stool. So on one side, you have a patient-facing application. I think of this as an intervention, and we effectively digitized evidence-based modes of therapy to deliver therapeutic via your smartphone. On the other side, you have the clinical dashboard or clinical protocol. So it's all the patient engagement is tracked and logged and sent to the clinical portal in near real time to provide insights to the clinician, both on care navigation and delivery, or otherwise known as clinical decision support. And then finally, the third leg of the stool is our Pear Connect. This is our digital patient services and specialty pharmacy. So what does that do? It, one, helps the patient receive the digital medicine. It's akin to going to the pharmacy, but on your phone. So you receive an access code to receive your digital medicine. Second, it really helps the patient over the therapeutic time frame to engage with the therapy in a meaningful way. Any questions, whether it's technical, whether it's content, etc., we have a service that helps that engagement. And then finally, Pear Connect really helps clinicians manage both the enrollment to prescription process as well as the follow-on reimbursement process. So again, this is part and parcel to our overall solution, both on the patient side as well as the clinician side, aided by Pear Connect.